Than you might be expecting comes a night of quality sport.
Hi everybody, big one welcome to Live and Dangerous.
So on tonight's show, highlights of the UEFA Cup semi-final first leg between Leeds United and Galatasaray.
Plus highlights from Chelsea and Manchester United in this week's Champions League ties.
Yes, all that plus the expert opinion of ex-West Ham and Palace stalwart Tony Gale. And our Grand National preview with the thinking man's bookie, Paul Austin.
Well, if that's not enough for you, there's plenty more action coming up on tonight's show.
On tonight's show, we go football crazy, starting with action from the Dutch League as Sparta take on FC Twente. We then travel halfway around the world to Argentina as River Plate meets San Lorenzo.
Well, tonight's news starts with reaction to the tragic deaths last night in Istanbul of two Leeds United fans.
Yes, a Turkish man is now being held by Istanbul police in connection with the murders of Christopher Loftus and Kevin Spate.
Leeds chairman Peter Ridsdale had pleaded with Leeds fans still in Turkey not to seek revenge and spent most of the day in talks about whether the match should actually be played at all.
We only had two options at the end of the day, one of which is to pull out of the tournament and the other is to go ahead tonight. A third option, which was to postpone the game and play it at some other time, wasn't really realistic, because it would just add to the tension. We consulted with UEFA, we consulted the FA, and I think on balance it's right, although I know a lot of people will criticise us.
Yeah, FA chiefs played down fears of further violence for the return leg in Leeds in 2 weeks' time. Press officer Steve Double said that English clubs had an excellent record of putting on trouble-free games and that the reputation of English fans as troublemakers had been exaggerated.
In recent years, English fans following their clubs in Europe abroad have been more sinned against than sinning. All too often they've been the prime targets of opposition fans, and tragically last night was perhaps a prime example of that, and certainly the worst to date.
Well, FA executive David Davis promised that the FA would do all it could to help in the investigation into last night's violence. The FA will join officials from Leeds, UEFA and the police in an attempt to find ways of avoiding similar trouble at future UEFA games.
Meanwhile, at Highbury tonight, Arsenal will take a slender lead into the second leg in France after they beat Lens 1-0 in the first leg at Highbury with a Dennis Bergkamp goal after just 2 minutes. Tony Gale was there and we'll be hearing from him after the Leeds highlights.
Well, on to the action now and highlights of tonight's UEFA Cup semi-final first leg, Galatasaray versus Leeds United. Your commentary team, Joe Jordan and Jonathan Pearce.
Well, a good evening from Istanbul, the cradle of civilization it has been called, but the actions of the brutal few last night were far removed from those of civilized men. It's left Yorkshiremen distraught and embittered. So difficult for this young Leeds side to focus on a game which is being played now to prevent further escalation. This the furthest Leeds have gone in Europe since the Champions League final of '75. 13 of the squad weren't even born then. Has that youth now run out of steam? 3 defeats in a row, the last of those an anemic display against Chelsea last Saturday. David O'Leary makes 2 changes. Michael Bridges returns up front after missing Saturday injured. Galatasaray are capable of anything. Against Chelsea in London, they sparkled for 20 minutes until Brazilian World Cup winner Tafarel was sent off. In the return here, they were faint-hearted and feeble. Hadji that night didn't try a leg. But this UEFA Cup run's revitalised the brilliant Romanian. He's again postponed his international retirement until after Euro 2000. It is a muted atmosphere. It is not the joyous stadium that this sometimes is for football, and that's understandable. And it's Galatasaray's Hadji burrowing through the middle. Now this is Hakan Suker immediately to run at Leeds, and a low shot tests Nigel Martin, who's kept 20 clean sheets this season in 46 games. That's Harry Kewell losing possession. This is little Hadji. As possession turns inside, Kewell was tripped and wins the free kick. Capped a record 120 times for Romania, for whom he scored 34 times. Harry Kewell was the offender. In comes the whipped free kick. He was going for goal, and Nigel Martin had it easily covered, but I don't think there's much doubt there. He sensed that Nigel Martin was slightly off his line, and the master from Romania went for goal. He'll be at Euro 2000. with Romania. So will Georgi Popescu at the back as national captain.
Well, you mentioned two players there, Jonathan, and that is a difference, along with Tafarel and the other players who are born and bred in Turkey, the immense amount of experience that they do have.
Oh yeah, it's dropped short. Great save by Nigel Martyn. The referee already thought about giving a free kick against Lee Bowyer for leading with the arm in the challenge. But there was Hagi with a whipped long-range shot and a splendid save by Nigel Martyn. In the opening 5 minutes, he's been tested twice. Good break to the left again by Arif. In the middle there, Hakan Şükür will be the target. Free header! 1-0! Hakan Şükür for Galatasaray on 12 minutes. And this is the most potent goal scorer in Turkish football. And Leeds simply left him far too much room. Radabi has time. Got a shout from Ian Hart. Kewell dips his shoulders. Great pace by Capone and also from Harry Kewell. This is a wonderful run beyond Popescu. Brilliant from Kewell, deserved better. A magnificent run from Harry Kewell. Now, the Galatasaray fans with their famous chants, Chimbom. Certainly they've played a part in this first half for the home side. Baka was the offender, free kick. Not had the greatest of halves. Eric Back, in fact, looked tired, I thought, on Saturday against Chelsea. It was a rather uninspired Leeds performance, lacking in imagination, jaded. Up goes Radabi. Oh, Capone was around the back instead of his to Galatasaray! And it's the Brazilian Capone creeping in with his third European goal of the season. Leeds failed to clear, and the misery worsens for them in the Ali Sami Yen Stadium. What a crucial time for the second goal. 90 seconds before the half-time interval.
They certainly look at Galatasaray and they don't really seem to be playing with the same urgency. I mean, sometimes it is fatal. If you consider yourself, certainly at this early stage, 2-0 up.
Okan still feeling the shoulder injury there. As Hagi floats another free kick in. He wasn't going for goal on that occasion, he was looking for Arif, but he's thoroughly enjoying himself, Hagi, as you saw from the smile when he won a free kick against Hart. That's a misjudgment. This is Bridges for Leeds. Great chance here. Michael Bridges. Oh! Michael Bridges again. Oh no! Twice the chance was on, and twice the chance was squandered for the Leeds top scorer. Well, Hakan Ünsal, a defender, is waiting to come on. He's a Turkish international of some 13 caps. He's been injured of late, been a regular for his country at left back or centre back. And there's another great effort, saved by Nigel Martyn from Hakan Şükür. He'll lead their line in Euro 2000 Turkey, and he remains a potent threat in the air, Hakan Şükür. Harry Kewell, Bullen was tugging his shoulders. Let's just count from now on in, shall we? The number of foul challenges against Harry Kewell on the night. So Leeds with a free kick. Curled in, free header, oh Kewell! How close do they have to get Leeds tonight? Tafarel and Popescu and Hagi alone, they have 400 caps. This is Kewell. Oh, he was taken out, and this is a free kick to Leeds United, and a real chance. Bullen was the offender. Come on, Leeds, here now. The nation is behind you, Ian Hart. With the drive, deflected. Oh, and deflected just wide. Wicked spin and curl. And from up here, it looked as if it passed no more than a foot wide of that post. But now, this is Capone beyond Hart. Hart's fouled his man. Capone made a real meal of it, though. Yellow card for Ian Hart.
Heading in towards goals, here he is. It was a late challenge, he did make quite a meal of it.
Ahmet there. Hakan Ünsal too. I think it will be the fullback who has the eventual shot here now, off Radabi. I make it, we've had 3.5 minutes of stoppage time. High ball in by Ahmet. Woodgate, and it's a corner kick to Galatasaray. He looked tired there. No time for the corner. Joe Leeds beaten on the night 2-0.
Well, joining us tonight is Tony Gale. Tony was at Highbury for the first leg of the other semi-final between Arsenal and Lens. But we must talk about Leeds first. I think, Tony, my own view is that the game shouldn't have gone ahead. As a player yourself, how do you think the players would have felt?
Well, it would have been a strange one to go into, quite honestly, Kevin. I think the game shouldn't have gone ahead either. But, you know, Peter Ridsdale was in talks all day long with UEFA officials, with the Galatasaray officials, with the police. You know, and he's a man of honour and dignity, and I'm sure that he feels he made the right decision. Whatever decision he made, people were going to find fault with it, but I certainly think it shouldn't have been played.
Inevitably difficult circumstances with such a severely depressing state of affairs and football violence rearing its ugly head, Tony. But even the fact that the Galatasaray refused to wear armbands, they had problems with a minute's silence. I mean, the whole atmosphere must have been so distasteful. How difficult would it have been for the Leeds players to rise above that and just focus on a game of football, which at the end of the day is what it's meant to be. It's meant to be a sport.
Well, they would have tried to protect the players from what was happening all day long today before the game, but obviously they would have heard what was happening and what had happened the previous day, and it would have affected them. There's no doubt about it. They're looking a tired side at the moment, Leeds United. A team full of youngsters. Yeah. I saw them on Saturday against Chelsea. They struggled there, and I think it just took the legs out of them again tonight, and it was not a very good display. They didn't take their chances and they didn't defend the crosses, but it was very difficult circumstances. But the second leg is one that's going to be really a hot stuff, isn't it?
Do you think that the players might be victims of their age? Because older players know how to pace themselves, don't they? These boys are so exuberant that...
Well, I think it's their age that's got them there in the first place. They've only got a squad of about 18 players who are capable of playing or sustaining a good quality style of play throughout the season. The bigger squads, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, they start to come to the fore even towards this late stage of the season, even though they're dealing with the Champions League. But Leeds United, it's also the first time that they've really been challenging for the title, and it does take it out of you, mentally as well as physically.
Because this is like the fourth consecutive defeat for Leeds, isn't it? I think 4 on the trot, which, you know, with the season they've had, I mean, that's got to be a serious question, you know, the wheels coming off.
Yeah, it looks like it at the moment, but they're still in a great position to, you know, qualify for the Champions League, and every neutral will want them to. Having been up there for such a long period of time, you wouldn't like to see them fail now.
Let's talk about Arsenal. You were there tonight. They surprised me, Lons. They looked like the Arsenal of old. They were very strong and very well organised, weren't they?
Well, they came there to do a job. They played 5 across the middle of the park. They played 1 up front, and they did a very good job as well. They were strong, physical, very athletic, and really didn't let Arsenal settle all night. They allowed it to be a really quick tempo game. Petit and Vieira got niggled all night long. Yeah. Same as Kano and Bergkamp, and quite honestly they missed the pace of Henry up front because they failed to turn them round other than then in the second minute when Bergkamp scored the goal. But it's a tough one. I think it'll be easier for them in the second leg though, funny enough.
Tony, as a non-Arsenal man, as a neutral, the question I have to ask you is, you look at someone like Petit, you look at Vieira, huge experience, no question how skilled, talented these boys are, but with that experience, where is the maturity of dealing with these niggling situations? Neither of them seem to be able to control their temper.
Yeah, it was very difficult. They played 3 on 2 against them tonight, and they really couldn't get their play going. They didn't have a particularly good night. Petit hit a wonderful ball early on for Bergkamp to score the goal, but I don't think he hit a good pass after that all night. He's suffering a bit at the moment. He's not in the best of form, and he does get the hump with himself a little bit. But Vieira is not in bad form, actually, but certainly they got about them well, the French tonight, Lons, and they did a good job, and you have to compliment them. But out in Lons, they have to come out. They have to score, and you must fancy Arsenal to score because there'll be spaces in behind, and of course Henry's eligible for the second leg.
Well, there's been more from Tony in a moment after brief highlights of Chelsea's quarter-final first leg against Barcelona. Oh, wow! And Manchester United's trip to Real Madrid.
After the hype of the build-up, you could forgive Chelsea for having an inferiority complex against the European Cup favourites. But after a shaky start, Gianfranco Zola sent a surge of self-belief through Stamford Bridge with a beautifully flighted free kick just before the half-hour mark. Buff line for Barcelona perhaps, but this was a magical night for Gianluca Vialli's men, and if they can recreate this level of performance in the Nou Camp, then a place in the semi-finals of the Champions League will surely be theirs.
A football theatre set for us. So an honourable stalemate in Madrid. United clearly the happier side, but Real Madrid know a counter-attacking goal at Old Trafford could prove enough.
The one thing about United, we didn't lose. If we had lost the game, then it would have been a really sad day for us, certainly the way we've been playing. But to come away knowing that we haven't played particularly well with a 0-0 draw, that is something positive out of the game and showing the character in the team. The spirit, the team spirit has been fantastic. And to come away with the result, knowing that we didn't play particularly well, I think we was going to settle for that too.
Adam Dark and Steve Lee, the reporters there. Tony, fantastic performance from Chelsea, and Vialli's decision to pick Morris ahead of Poyet totally vindicated.
Yeah, I think he picked Jody in front of Gus Poyet last night simply because they wanted to press in on Barcelona and really stop them from playing. Xavi played in place of Guardiola, who was injured last night. I think that had a big factor on it as well. But Jody was excellent. He has the legs. Gus Poyet has not got the legs to do the closing down, and that's why they played Jody in that position, and I think it was a great move.
Concern, obviously, is they did get the away goal, and just on occasion when they were coming forward, they looked awesome. I know they're weak at the back, but presumably this tie is far from over.
Well, I was there last night, Johnny, and it was some atmosphere, and really you couldn't foresee what was going to happen. Barcelona had most of the play in the early game, then all of a sudden Chelsea get 3 goals in 8 minutes, and it's 8 of the best minutes that I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen loads of football and played loads of football, but it was incredible to watch. But you just had that feeling that Barca were going to come back in it, and they got that all-important goal, and it really leaves it on a knife edge now. But I fancy Chelsea. I think they'll score away in the Nou Camp, and they'll make it difficult for Barca. So I still fancy Chelsea because Abelardo and De Boer really struggled to defend.
I thought Zola was fantastic, but the one who impressed me last night was Emerson Thome. I thought he was awesome last night.
Yeah, he did very well. I was worried about him last night because he likes a physical battle, but European competition, sometimes it's all about concentrating, and sometimes I think Frank Leboeuf's the better bet in European football, but I think Thome excelled himself. I thought he was brilliant alongside Desailly, as was Albert Ferrer.
Tony, I do need you to explain one thing, though, for all those Chelsea fans out there like myself. How can Chelsea go and beat Barcelona 3-1 and then go and struggle against the likes of Watford, Bradford?
Well, it's incredible, isn't it? But it's totally different football, Johnny. I mean, there were 6 changes from the team that played against Leeds on Saturday, and you'll probably see 6 changes again on Sunday for the semi-final. So they're seldom playing the same team, but that's no excuse. I think it's all up here. It's all between the ears, and certainly it's their attitude and the way they go out when they play the likes of Watford, Bradford, Leicester, Derby, teams where they've all dropped points against.
Yeah.
And when they're up against the big sides, even in the Premiership, like Manchester United, Arsenal, it's Chelsea at their best.
Well, very briefly, talking of footballing mysteries, who was it occupying Steve McManaman's body on Tuesday night against Man United? It's fantastic.
Oh, that's cruel, Kev. I mean, Steve McManaman's a very good player, but he always gets played in wide positions for England. He starts off wide for Real Madrid, but he's got that licence to come inside and roam, and that's when he plays at his best, threading little balls through the middle for forwards. And certainly he's a very good player, and he certainly must have given Kevin Keegan a real big nudge just before the Euros.
Kev, we've got to give Man United 30 seconds. Good result, 0-0. I mean, no away goal, but...
Well, I thought they'd score an away goal. There's no way I could see that they weren't going to score an away goal. I was really surprised. But again, I think it was just a little bit lax going in there after that 7-1 trouncing of West Ham. I think they just thought they were a little bit better than they were, a little bit cocky, and they got brought down to earth a little bit by Real, but you got to fancy United in the return.
Yeah, definitely, Old Trafford. Tony, as always, great pleasure to see you. Thanks for coming in, sir. Well, in the second half, we'll be talking to tall Paul Austin of IG Index in our preview of the Grand National.
Yes, and later, football action from the Dutch Premier League with Sparta versus FC Twente, and from Argentina, River Plate take on San Lorenzo.
And if that's not enough, Lothar Matthäus features in our Major League Soccer game from the USA at 4:30. We'll see you after the break.
Round 3 of the MotoGP World Championship live on 5 from 5:45 in the AM on Sunday. That's repeated at 12:40 later that day, luckily. Welcome back to Live and Dangerous, and to tall Paul Austin and his lovely little houndstooth check there. We'll whiz through the football because I want to get on to our argument about the Grand National.
All right. UEFA Cup, first of all, no change in the odds for either Arsenal or Lens. A disappointing result probably for Arsenal when they went 1 up inside 2 minutes, but probably good enough to see them still odds on to get through, but a big switch in the odds for Galatasaray and Leeds. Michael Bridges will probably rue that missed chance in the second half, and the away goal would have been vital. So Leeds' odds have just shifted back out to 5-1. They've doubled, in Galatasaray now second favourites. Unfortunately for Leeds, they are pretty good away from home these days. Didn't used to be in previous seasons, but don't forget they actually won 4-1 at Mallorca in the last round.
Now, Lons' odds are what?
6-1. They're still the outsiders.
Even though they're going into a home game with a...
Yeah, again, no away goal, so Arsenal can defend that, and if Arsenal get one, you'd have thought that's all over.
OK, then let's have a look at the Champions League with Chelsea's fantastic performance.
Fantastic.
Must have changed the odds.
It has changed the odds. They were the 16-1 rank outsiders of the 8 going into these quarter-finals, drawn against the supposed clear favourites for the Championship. Those odds long gone now, 4-1 joint third favourites. And we also boast the favourites as well, Manchester United. They're at 9-4. And whilst the odds on a UEFA Cup final from 2 English sides have probably receded tonight, certainly the odds have shortened for a Champions League final in Paris. That's got every chance. Clearly, United deserve to be favourites, although that tie is by no means over yet.
And although Valencia's performance against Lazio was stunning as well.
Yeah, I mean, some big surprise results throughout the second round of group stages, and I mean that just all action tie, and 5-2, you just couldn't have predicted it.
Right, now, Grand National, and Tall Paul, you know my admiration for you as no bands. Why on earth is Bobby Joe, who's been losing over hurdles, still such a clear favourite for the National on Saturday?
Well, he won it last year. He was losing over hurdles before he won last year. And what you need in this race, particularly this year, is a horse that definitely goes on good ground. We know Bobby Joe not only goes on good ground, Paul Carberry, a great jockey, but also it stays the 4.5 miles. So it's a worthy favourite. You don't believe me?
Well, I do believe it. You laughed at my selection, Young Kenny. The ground's turned against Young Kenny, isn't it? So
well, earlier in the week you'd have said Young Kenny could well start favourite for the race. It was nibbled at 16-1 and 14-1. You can still back Young Kenny at 12-1 now. But the ground today, in the first day of the meeting at Aintree, it rode very, very fast. If you look at the spread on the number of finishes we're predicting in the race, 18 to 20 finishes. Now, there's only 40 possible finishes, only 40 runners can take place. A horse like Cavalero's got to rely on one coming out to actually get in the race. That's a reserve. That's a very, very high spread. Very good ground. Unfortunately, the first day marred by 5 deaths of horses. A very tragic circumstance. But it just shows how quick the ground is. They're going hell for leather around this course.
Seems to me there's very little value in SP betting, considering that all the horses are in the handicap for the first time in many years.
Yeah, well, as long as I can remember. The value this year is undoubtedly shopping around. There's some bookmakers paying out 5 places. Got to look for that. A lot of people are drifting offshore to make sure they're not paying betting tax. But you've clearly got to shop around for the best prices. And if you look at any one bookmaker's list, you may well be right. The value doesn't stay you between the eyes. But if you shop around between the lists and just pick the best price, there's certainly value to be had.
OK, thank you very much. Mikko's Dream, I like the idea of that little horse. And the Norwegian one, just for a laugh.
That's 100-1.
That doesn't stop me, mate. Listen, thanks very much for coming in, Paul. Now, before we go back to football and our action from Holland and Argentina, it's competition time.
Think you can bat like Stewart, stand firm against Caddick and hit Mullally to the boundary? Well, the cricket season is nearly upon us, and Live and Dangerous is giving you the chance to look like a pro, even if you can't play like one. We've teamed up with Slazenger to give a lucky winner a cricket bat just like the one Alex Stewart plays with, so you can strut your stuff and flash your blade with the best of them on the cricket pitch. The winner will also get a copy of Warwickshire coach Bob Woolmer's new book, Woolmer on Cricket, courtesy of Virgin Books. And if you don't win the main prize, don't worry, there are also runners-up prizes of copies of the book. For a chance to win these great prizes, all you have to do is answer this question. Which county does Alex Stewart play cricket for? Is it A, Lancashire, B, Yorkshire or C, Surrey? Call us on 09068 555505. Calls cost no more than 25 pence and phone lines will close on Friday.
Well, best of luck with that. Just time for a quick look at the papers as well. And it is a sad note. Final insult. Turks did not even wear black armbands. Incredible to think it's just a game of football.
Well, I think Galatasaray have got a lot to answer for with this whole nonsense about Welcome to Hell that's gone on year after year, and they've been happy to encourage it.
Chuck them out the competition.
I quite agree. For once, you and I are in total agreement, except about your jacket, of course. That's all we've got time for tonight. Thank you very much to our guests, Tony Gale and Tall Paul Austin.
Yes, it's good night from us now, but the night is still young, and we're going to be kicking off tonight's action with football action from Holland with Sparta versus FC Twente. Enjoy.
It looks like a billiard table here. Manager charge.